Hi everybody, and welcome to the Vitality Festival Chat and Vibe series. Today we've got the beautiful Barb Stone with us, who we're going to chat to in a moment. We've got the Vitality Festival, which is starting on the 31st of October. It runs for 9 days. We've got 70 amazing presenters lined up. We're going to inspire you and educate you and support you over the period of Vitality Festival. We'd love you to join up. It doesn't make a difference if you can't make all the sessions. You're going to get a recording or access to the recording for all the presenters over the 9 days. If you want to join up, you can find us at www.vitavibeevents.com, and there's a link below that you can click on. So over to you, Barb. How are you doing today?
Thank you for being in touch. It's such a privilege to be part of this, and I just congratulate you guys for putting it all together. It's a wonderful gift to humanity, as far as I'm concerned, what you're doing, and so badly needed at this time when there's so much fear around everywhere. So what you're doing is uplifting and rejuvenating and everything that's needed to lift people's energy fields.
Yeah, and I think the most important thing we saw is that, you know, people are being so spread out and dispersed at the moment, and people are really wanting to connect, and it's difficult because we're still not allowed to see people so much. So we sort of thought by bringing people together, and, you know, just even the presenters, everybody's attitude is they just want to help, they want to give back, they want to support, and really together, when we all band together and we work together, we're able to achieve amazing things.
This time frame on the planet has never happened before. In 3 weeks lockdown around the world, it's just simply amazing. And I look at the ages of even my kids or my grandkids, and they've never come across this sort of challenge before, or the trauma that's bringing on for many people. They've often lived lives that have been, you know, part of the me generation, be able to go out and do whatever they wanted. So this has really been challenging and divisive within families, within communities. There's some people who have one point of view and others have a completely different opposite point of view, and that can lead to strong issues, unfortunately.
Yeah. A lot of breakdown. Tell us a bit about you, Barb. Tell us about who you are and what you do.
Thank you. I've been in the alternative health field for the last 44 years. It started off in my mid-30s, obviously. 2 things happened in that year. I was given my eyesight back. I was literally part of a brand new experiment where I was very short-sighted and my eyesight was restored. And then I came across the healing modality called Reiki. And at that point, there was only one Reiki master in Australia, so it was at the very beginning of it. Those 2 things together catapulted me into a completely different direction, because all of a sudden everything changed for me. So I started exploring energy work and all the fields that go with that. And 44 years later, having traveled around the world, I've done so many different things with different people, all of which has been very valuable along the way, and some of which I'll talk about. The main work in the last 25 years has been dealing with archetypes. Archetypes are roles or patterns or behaviours that we all play. And once you understand those roles and those patterns, then it can help you to understand where you're stuck, what's going on that's holding you back, because awareness and knowledge help you to make changes in your life. It's obvious when things don't serve us very well, we get illness happening or car accidents and those sorts of things. So to understand what's causing us sometimes unknowingly to do what we're doing, it can be a really helpful thing. So 25,000 plus chart readings later, I don't need the practice anymore, and that necessitated the book called Archetypes Made Easy, and that enables people to go out and learn it for themselves, because then I can step back and not have to do it anymore. So I've just left Melbourne and moved down the coast, and it's lovely to have be able to have the walks on the beach that I really need. So along the way, I built a meditation retreat at a place called Jamison. A lot of what I do is guided by intuition, or I'm a bit loath to say the word visions or whatever, but I've been sent in many different places doing many different things, and always not knowing why I'm doing it, but learning how to follow with trust and with the faith and the wisdom of there's a higher purpose to all of this. So that built a meditation retreat in Jamison, where I had no idea where Jamison was. It said build a labyrinth, and I said, what the hell's a labyrinth? And all these things have unfolded over the years. But times change and we move on, and what was once really effective and working can change and move on as you get what that lesson is all about, or what the opportunity is all about, and then it's time to move on. So I've lived that way in my life for a long, long time now. I don't know how not to live that way. So it's more a heart-directed, intuitive response to things that happen rather than a mental thing. So obviously the mind is a very valuable tool, but it's more a heart response for me.
Yeah, love it. And I must say, you were one of my earlier teachers, and you imparted a lot of wisdom and gave me a lot of direction. And I've followed Barb for a very long time. Was even at her most recent book launch, and felt really honoured to be part of that tribe that you've helped me build. So just back to the archetypes, I think, that's really important at this stage, because one of the things that you mentioned there was that it helps people to understand their patterns and behaviours. I think at the moment, what's going on, we've been all pushed into these circumstances which are really unfamiliar towards us. And a lot of people, some people have created some not so fantastic habits and patterns, and some people have really been able to establish some great patterns. So what advice would you give to people right now in terms of being able to create healthy patterns or even healthy habits that help them move forward in a different way?
I think that's a really good question. I think the main thing is, whilst there's a pandemic or a plandemic going on and it's all about COVID on the surface, I think there's an even greater pandemic going on, and that's the one around fear. Fear is the biggest way we reduce our immune system. Fear just wrecks our adrenals, it wrecks our the central nervous system. And so unfortunately, and this is why I was so happy to come on board with you guys, there's a lot of fear-based stuff that's going on out there. And there are unfortunately people that have a vested interest in promoting fear. And fear lowers our energy field enormously. So for me, if there is something that's going on and you're really fear-based around this, it would be asking yourself, where's this fear really coming from? Our ultimate fear, of course, is I'll get sick and I'll die. Yet the recovery rate for COVID is close to 99%. So it goes much, much deeper than that. And it can even go back to our birth and what happened at our birth, where we all experience trauma in our lives, some obviously more so than others, but there's no such thing as original fear. There's a deeper fear. And once we sort of dig a bit deeper and go in underneath, then what the current level of fear is that's going around and people are plugging into, if you dig deeper than that and heal that level, then you'll be able to build your immune system, build your strength, build your vitality, and have a different mindset about what's going on, and be able to step back. And if I could give anybody a gift, it would be to march to the beat of our own drum, to be our own internal reference, not reference outside of ourselves to what the media says or the premier says or anyone else says, to listen intuitively and follow that. So that's what I'd be, if I could give anyone a gift, it would be to be able to do that, to listen internally and build our own strength, rather than pay attention to watching every news service you can under the planet or every paper, because there's a lot of things that are just lowering your energy field, not raising it. And we have to make choices. It boils down to making clear choices about, what will I do with my energy? Will I sit and watch news service after news service tonight and get depressed, and then will I turn to alcohol, or will then I need to do drugs or eat more food, or what is it? They're choices. We have to know, where do those choices come from? What's my reactivity and my patterns that say this is what I do? A lot of us were, when we were children and we hurt ourselves or something, oh, poor you, you, let me make it better, let's go and have something to eat. And that sets up the pattern to just eat when something doesn't feel right. So it's all, the archetypes are all about those sorts of things to help you to understand your patterns.
Fantastic.
Then you
Fantastic.
can make
So in terms of fear for most people, do you feel, is it a choice?
That's another interesting question. Do I feel it's a choice? No, most of us are reactive immediately. I mean, fear is an acronym, false evidence appearing real. So 95 to 98% of our fears are unfounded because they're coming from thought forms, and those thought forms are either taking their understanding from the past of what's happened, or they're projecting you into the future of what might happen. Yet the reality is, right now in this present moment, there isn't a fear operating around you, but your mind will tell you that there is. So it's a choice and it's not a choice. It's reactive because of past programming or because of what we're fed into the future. You've got to be frightened of this, you've got to be frightened of that. Yet if we understand those patterns and behaviors, then we can take a deep breath and step back and saying, right now, right this minute, am I okay? Am I about to be eaten by a boa constrictor? Am I about to be consumed by a flood? And if the answer is no, then this is the moment I have to pay attention to. Whereas most of us send our energy out to the past or to the future, you know, and that's not where we are. And we have to, I wish this stuff was taught in schools, and it will be, you know, sooner or later come to it, but we have to learn how to manage what's real and what's not real.
Yeah, fantastic advice. And I think from what you said before, you know, fear is so detrimental to so many of us in terms of lowering our immune system, lowering our energy field, you know, pretty much depletes us on every single level. So do you also feel that fear is something that's personal? There's a personal feel, and then there's also the collective fear as well. And how do you see the difference in terms of how that affects each person?
One thing impacts on the other because we're not separate, and this is the point of your thing. We're all, you know, we're all connected on some level. So you have your personal energy field. You know, we come in like an open book waiting to be written on, and who will write on your book more than anyone else will be your parents and extended authority figures like older siblings and grandparents. Religion will write on your book, your culture will write on your book, the media of the day will write on your book, the education system will write on your book, and your peer group as you're growing up. Unfortunately, until you hit puberty, most of what's been written on your book is what you should, you must, you have to do to be accepted, to be loved, and be approved of. But when you examine that, a lot of it is fear-based. If you don't wear the right clothes, then you're not cool. If you don't have the right haircut, then you're not acceptable. And social media has a lot to answer for in promoting all of that sort of stuff. It's insidiously dangerous. It's got fabulous things about it, but it can also be dangerous. So for a lot of us, we don't even know why we're driven the way that we are, or we take it as granted that authority figures have told us this and they must know more than us. Our teenage years are meant to be about rebellion, where we go out and test this stuff out for ourselves, but a lot of us don't because we're too busy being the good boy or the good girl, an archetype, etc. So we often don't do it till we're much older. So there's the personal fears that you were taught by all those things that I mentioned, and then there's the collective fear. So each country has its own energy field and each group has its own energy field, and you can buy into that as well, but they're still all connected on some level because we are all connected on some level. But when you understand what runs you and motivates you, or the shoulds, the musts, the have-tos, as I mentioned earlier, and then there's the cultural stuff and everything else that goes on as well. When you start to examine all that and you say then, well, is this true? Does this make my heart sing? Does this belief system float my boat? Does this belief system lift me up, or does it pull me down? That's where we have to start taking responsibility. Just because someone's told you it's the truth doesn't mean to say that it is, because they've probably been told it by their parents and then their grandparents and so on down the line. So this is where we have to learn how to examine more what is the maturation of our motivation. Is it, you know, little boy, little girl that's still calling the shots, or have you got your big girl panties on or your big boy panties on, and that's what's really calling the shots here? And you can't do that until you learn how to think for yourself, not what the tribe says or everybody else. So it's both, really, personal and collective.
Yeah, great answer. Thank you. I think for a lot of people at the moment, there is a lot of adversity going on. And I think adversity, I know you agree with, it can be potentially a springboard for greater things. And you can look at all the stresses and pressures that we're under at the moment, or you can have a look to see where the openings are for growth opportunities. So what growth opportunities have you found in the last few months for you?
This isn't probably going to go down well, but I bless COVID on one level. I realise so many people are struggling and doing hardship. What it's forced me to do is to slow down. And I can see in a lot of, even in my own children and grandchildren, that they've had more family, really fantastic family time. You know, my daughter-in-law, I take my hat off to her. She's made amazing birthdays and they have lots of fun and games nights. And I just say, you're amazing how you bringing all this together. So I think it's forced people to be more creative, and I think it's made people think, how do we do this differently? I do Pilates online on Zoom. You know, who would have thought that a long time ago? Or yoga, or singing groups, or choirs. God. Anyway, for me, the main thing has been the time out it's given me, which has enabled me to make a decision. I'm going to slow down, which is, I've been working for whatever, straight for 54 years. It's time that I do slow down, because you can keep giving out, but the balance isn't there if you don't take time out for yourself. And I need this time to be more inward, reflective looking, and I'm grateful for that, because I may not have made this decision otherwise. So for me, it's been like that. And as you mentioned before, I think adversity, which gets back to whether we're reactive or responsible for our choices, I look back on all the difficulties and hardships, and there's been lots of them in my life, and I am so grateful for every single one of them, because they've taught me what I know now. So there isn't anybody, very few people that I come across, short of murdering someone or whatever, that I can't relate to them, because there's just been so many different things in my life, and I can see the strength that comes out of adversity when you allow it to unfold rather than become the victim. This isn't fair, you're doing this to me, it's your fault, you have to fix it. That unfortunately won't get you anywhere. When you say it's out of my control, what can I do to feel good about this? What can I do to change my reality? What's within my power, my command right now? That changes the dynamic. When your attitude changes, everything else changes as well. So
absolutely,
I'm one of the few people that can say, you know, it's been, I've missed family and I've missed friends, and yes, I've missed all of those things, but it's given me a great opportunity to go inward more and be still and quiet, which
I love that. So Barb, at our Vitality Festival, you'll be talking to everybody about how to gain self-awareness after a crisis. Without going too deep, can you just tell a little bit to our listeners and viewers about what they might experience in your workshop?
Yes, I'm going to be talking about different levels of consciousness, and how when we're choosing to come from one level of consciousness, then the reaction is a certain way will unfold in your life. And as you can make clear choices and move through the different levels, then equally your reality will be changing as well. So it's how to deal with adversity. But first of all, you've got to have a map of the world that makes sense to you, that can understand, so that you can say, yes, I can see I was in that level, that column for a long time, but boy, I shifted over to there, and what a difference it made. So it's about showing people how that they can see that there's another way to look at life. There's another, no matter what the difficulty, you can be, Nelson Mandela showed this to people, didn't he? You can be in prison and you can still be free. It's
Yeah.
all to do with your perception and how you see stuff. So it's learning how to do that and
Yeah.
understanding you have a choice. We always have a choice in how we perceive things, and perception makes the difference in everybody's lives.
I think that is
So
absolutely key to life, is, you know, that whatever's going on in front of us, we decide how we want to perceive it. And if you're not having a good time with something, then maybe we need to look at our own perception and the way we're viewing things in terms of, you know, how we're going to respond to it.
I was saying to a doctor friend of mine when we were having a walk along the beach the other day, this time last year, I went overseas because we could then, to do a month silent meditation retreat. And I just arrived in this country, and not only did they lose my luggage, my mother died at the same time. She was 99. And he looked a bit shocked. And I said, I could see the cosmic joke in this. It was like, oh, this is funny. I had given my mum permission to go before I left, of course. She had dementia, but he sort of looked at me when I said, oh, I can see the cosmic joke. He said, what do you mean? And I said, I saw that made me extra vulnerable because of those circumstances halfway around the world on my own. And I said, what a perfect gift that was, to go in so vulnerable into that month meditation instead of, you know, I'm in charge here or whatever. And I just said, thank you. It was such a perfect gift. Now that's perception. Somebody could say, this is awful, I'm halfway around the world, my mother's just died. But it wasn't. I just saw it as the gift it was. So it's all about, you know, how we choose to perceive things. So
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to pick up on one
yeah.
of the other things that you were talking about before in terms of the victim, because I know that's one of the major archetypes. And I know that you're all into the archetypes. And I know there's a lot of people at the moment who might be watching this who are really feeling that they're, you know, the victim of what's going on, whether they've lost their jobs or they're exhausted, or, you know, the frontline workers of having to show up all the time. So what's maybe one or two things that you might impart to those people who are feeling like they're the victim of this COVID situation?
A fabulous question. Again, there's a partial truth in a lot of these things. On one level, you can say that we are, because it's out of our control and the government's calling the shots and, you know, doing what they're doing. But on another level, the victim at the lower level would say this isn't fair. But at a higher level, the victim would turn around and say, okay, what can I do for myself? This isn't what I wanted to have happen, but what's within my power to change these circumstances around? Do I need to take more time out for myself? Do I need to be more still, more quiet? Do I need to improve my diet? Do I need to be able to go out more out into nature? What is it that I need to do? And once you go within and start listening to yourself and say, okay, body, what do you want? Or okay, heart, what is it that you're wanting? And it's within your means to give yourself that. For some people it isn't. But if it is, and you do that, you will immediately change what's going on inside of you, because it's called self-care, and it's called self-love and self-nurturing, and that's critical no matter what circumstances that we're in. And you know, we still can have the freedom to sit and be quiet and still, or gaze out at a tree and just connect with that, because nature is so healing, etc. So again, it boils down to perception and attitude, you know, and belief system. So yeah, that's where we all understand.
Love it.
And women in particular, the old map of the world of the feminine is all about sacrifice and martyrdom. And so we do that well, a lot of women. Men can too, of course, but women excel in it. And so it's at times like this, which it has done for me, made me slow down. That, you know, do I really need to play that role anymore in martyring myself or sacrificing myself to keep someone else happy? It's giving us the time to check this stuff out and say, why am I still playing these roles? How do they serve me? You know, who benefits? And if it isn't you, because the old map of the world had fixing everyone else on the planet first and you came way down the bottom, that's not okay anymore. This is part of a new order that's coming in, where we have to understand what self-love looks like, that we have to come to the top of the tree as much as everybody else does, whereas for thousands of years we've been putting ourselves at the bottom. It's not okay.
Fantastic. Fantastic wisdom. Thank you so much. Thank you, Barb, for joining us today. There's so many amazing things that people can pick up just from this talk. Imagine what you're going to pick up when you come along to Barb's talk at the Vitality Festival. As I said, we start on the 31st of October. There are so many world-class leading presenters who are taking part in this festival. Everybody just wants to give and gift you all their wisdom, their experience and their energy. We hope you join us. The link is below, and I'll also include a link for Barb if you need to get in touch with her. Thank you. As I said, you have been a great mentor for me for very many years, and I can't recommend you and everything that you stand for enough. So big, huge thank you to you.
I'm only reflecting back to you who you are, sweetheart. So it's a pleasure. Okay, thank you. Thanks for the time.